Join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown.
The Shrieking Shadow. This story was actually an experience I had a few months ago, and it was very cold where I lived at the time. And this caused me to have a heater on very high setting in order to, try and keep myself warm, and it was just really uncomfortable without it on. So I was laying in bed anyway, and I was kind of just drifting off into sleep. I was sort of half asleep. And all of a sudden, I felt someone sitting down on the bed beside me. I actually felt the compression, like a weight on the bed. I thought maybe it was a friend or one of my siblings playing a joke on me. And so anyway, at first I didn't really pay it that much attention, but then I still felt that, this compression, and I didn't sort of hear anybody laugh or anything like that. So I thought, wait a minute, what's going on? So I looked up and I saw this jet black figure, and I mean, really dark figure. It's just the blackest you can imagine. I don't know how to describe it. And it was just sitting at the foot of my bed. And this figure had no facial features, just nothing. But it was kind of vaguely humanoid. And it was just this black shape, black humanoid or humanoidish kind of shape, because it wasn't perfectly, human shaped. There was something different about it. I still thought that this was some kind of joke. I thought, my friends or siblings just playing some kind of sick joke on me. So I slowly turned the lights on, but this didn't change anything. The black shape, this thing, whatever it was still there on the end of my bed, and there was no change in the color. It was as if it was sucking the light out of the room, because there was a heaviness and a kind of dimness in the room that, normally it wasn't like that when the lights were on. I reached out to touch this strange being. It was still there, and I don't know what came over me, but I just felt like touching it. I think I was just trying to convince myself that it was, real or something. I don't know. And anyway, it didn't react in the slightest until my hand was just a few inches away from what would normally be a face. And then at which point this shape began to flinch away. That's the only way I can describe it is it sort of flinched away, like it just didn't want me to touch it. As I made contact with it though, my hand was suddenly engulfed in this cold sensation. It was colder than anything I've ever experienced. It was just so strange. It felt like my hand was in this, liquid nitrogen or something. The creature then gave out this shrill, kind of loud sound that was like a kind of discordant violin, like it was in this agony all of a sudden as I touched it. And then it just vanished into thin air. The strangest thing about this experience was that I wasn't the only one who experienced it. Apparently, a neighbor who, talked to me later said that she had experienced the same thing at the similar time, and this shrieking sound that the creature made was heard by other people nearby. I was the only one who touched the creature, but the other people who reported their own experiences with this shadow creature said that it just vanished just after this loud shriek. I haven't seen it again since, and I don't know if I ever will, and I never, ever want to have this experience again. I hope it never comes back. One thing I should also mention is that There was another person who had an experience with this, and she um she wasn't woken up by it, but she saw it when she walked into the room. And this being was just kind of standing next to the bed. She started to back out of the room, and then she heard this shrieking sound coming from inside the bedroom. She looked back inside, and she saw it vanish into thin air like I did. So this is just pretty scary from both myself and, this other person and whatever other people heard it. But I don't know exactly what it is, but I don't know. It's just terrifying. That's all I can say. There seem to be a lot of experiences with these, dark shadow people. It's almost like that. I get the feeling they're these sort of tormented souls or something, probably just doomed to walk the earth and, just live in the shadows and come out at night. I don't know. Um, and they're almost kind of vampire like, almost like they're sucking the energy out of people or something as they sleep. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting and definitely a terrifying experience. I hope it never comes back. The ranch house. A few years back, my brother and his family, wife, toddler, and daughter, and I both moved to Florida about the same time. This was on a work study program, so I was in this program housing unit, but he rented a house in a nice little subdivision in Orlando. The house itself was nothing special. It was kind of your, cookie cutter sort of ranch style house, made to look a little more fancy and, with high ceilings and, just kind of little more sort of old fashioned ranchy kind of style. The front hall was really big and it had two arches going into separate corridors. One of those arches led into smaller hallway with a bathroom and two bedrooms, and then the other one was another small hallway with the laundry room and the master bedroom and the bathroom. The front hall itself went into the living room and then the kitchen. So after we moved, a lot of the family decided to join us, and one of these people was my aunt. And she didn't have housing set up when she moved down, so she and her husband stayed in the spare bedroom off of the first small hallway. My brother's daughter was going to be in the other, but was still sleeping in her crib in the master bedroom. While my aunt and her husband are living there, my aunt suddenly gets really sick. She gets sick over and over. She had issues with her blood pressure. She had arthritis, pneumonia, and all these weird things just started to crop up all of a sudden, like everything was just going haywire in her body. Eventually, they found their own place and moved out, and she stopped getting sick. No one thought anything of it. Then my brother's mother in law moved down, and she occupied the same bedroom. And same thing happened. She started to get sick. She just got sick with these random little bugs over and over. And at one point, where she was hospitalized, and her statistics are all over the place. And they had no idea why. She then moves to her own place, and everything regarding her health just clears up suddenly. So by then, my program ends, and I move into the spare room while looking for a place of my own. And then I start getting sick too. I suddenly got high blood pressure for the first time in my life. I got throat infections that just kept on reoccurring, and I kept losing my voice. I had arthritis that started to develop in my ankle, migraines, etc. By this time, my brother and his family went on a couple of short vacations, little weekend getaways, and I start noticing shadows out of the corner of my eye whenever I'm in the living room or kitchen. And they're always moving in the front hall and passing between the two small hallways. I kept this to myself because, I didn't want to freak anyone out and I didn't want to freak my niece out or have my brother think that I'm losing my mind. My sister in law has been having back and leg pain all of this same time. They thought it was something to do with a badly placed epidural during my niece's birth, but the problem didn't show up until they moved to Florida. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore, and I asked her if she's seen anything weird in the house, and she says the exact same thing that I've seen: shadows moving in the front hall, going back and forth between the two small hallways. Now, the niece is old enough to have her own room, and it's finally painted and her new bedroom assembled, and she's moved in. For a whole week, she'll play in there during the day if someone is with her, but she refuses to sleep in there. She says her toys talk to her when no one else is around, and she keeps mentioning something about someone named Robert. She's young and has a fairly small circle up to this point, so we can say without question that she doesn't even know anyone by that name. She doesn't have any friends by that name that we know of. Then in preschool, she started referring to other girls by these kind of racist terms that did not come from anyone else in the house. For example, there was an Asian girl in her class, and she started calling her China doll. And that's the most tame thing that she did, of the kind of thing she was saying. So anyway, we didn't know where any of this was coming from, and it was just kind of odd behavior. Eventually, the sister-in-law and myself start seeing more shadows and hearing noises now. We're hearing bumps and crashes and just all kinds of little noises here and there. And it's always when we're alone. Somewhere around this time, my brother finds a little black kitten and brings it home. Because there are two large dogs in the house, the kitten is put in the laundry room and it stays there so that she doesn't get stepped on. And one morning, we woke up to find her dead. She was just laying there like she was asleep in her little bed, and she was dead. And she had gotten a 100% healthy review from the vet just weeks before. So there was nothing wrong with her that we knew of. The sister-in-law leans on my brother to start looking for someplace else. Just as one of the dogs, the female, is suddenly struck blind, and she started having seizures. She's 4 years old, and she's never had any problems. She's always been really healthy. The day we moved out, the dog had another seizure and died. This property went back up for rent, and because we were friendly with the people across the street, we got an earful when about 2 months after we moved out, the family that had moved in after us suddenly packed up everything and they just bolted away in the middle of the night, and the rent had been fully paid. The sister-in-law and I had this impression. It was just this thing that came to us, we just kind of just agreed on it, that there was something in that house that specifically did not like females. Every woman who stayed there and every female animal who stayed there just seemed to get ill. And the child was being influenced badly by nothing we could even explain. But I just knew that something was having some kind of influence, on the kid. My brother, my aunt's husband, never saw or heard anything. So there was definitely something going on. And we knew by those shadows that we saw that it was something supernatural, because I can't think of any other explanation. That's an interesting story, and one of the things that people often overlook is, that living in a haunted house or, in another place that's infested with something paranormal or something negative, um, quite often does actually affect people physically too. It can make people sick, but a lot of people just don't always make the connection. If they get ill health or something like that, and they're in some kind of old haunted house or something. But yeah, it's almost like perhaps something of that still of somebody else's sickness. Someone who died there or something maybe still hangs around. Um, some kind of energy I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. Very good story, though.